My friends and fellow citizens, today I am before you not merely to discuss a policy issue, but to defend the very foundation of our constitution, that is Ambedkar's constitutional vision of federalism, which is under strain under the guise of Women's Reservation Bill. My friends, Baba Saheb Ambedkar was not merely the chief architect of the Indian Constitution. He was a visionary intellectual who deeply understood India's civilizational diversity and a social, political complexities, and he formulated the federal system to suit the diversity of India. His design of India's federal structure was not accidental. It was deliberate, nuanced, and rooted in the need to balance unity in diversity. In the Constituent Assembly itself, Baba Saheb Ambedkar categorically clarified the Indian Constitution is a federal constitution. It establishes what may be called a dual polity, the union at the center and the state at the periphery, each endowed with sovereign powers to be exercised in their respective fields. This formulation was a safeguard against the centralized authoritarianism. It ensured that India would remain a union of states, not a unitary state masquerading as one. Ambedkar further explained the flexible nature of this nature. The constitution is both unitary as well as federal according to the requirements of the time and circumstances. In normal times, it is federal. In times of war, it may function as a unitary. This federal with unitary bias model was meant to respond extraordinary emergencies, not to justify routine central overreach or political consolidation. The present challenge, federalism versus majoritarian centralization. Recent political developments, particularly the attempt to link delimitation with the implementation of the Women's Reservation Framework, raises serious constitutional concerns. The delimitation exercise is structured without safeguards, disproportionately increasing the representation in northern states, reducing the relative voice of southern and northeastern states, penalizing the states that successfully implemented population control policies, and 4. Undermining the federal balance envisioned by Baba Saheb Ambedkar. This is not merely a technical electoral adjustment. It has profound implications for the distribution of political power within the union. The attempt to introduce such structural changes under the guise of progressive legislation like Women's Reservation Bill, which was passed in 2023 itself, raises questions about the intent and the transparency. This is a political strategy or a constitutional reform. The linking of delimitation to women's reservation appears less like a constitutional necessity and more like a political strategy of the ruling party. It creates a false binary, support the bill or oppose the women empowerment. It shifts the narrative from federal restructuring to gender justice, and it attempts to politically corner opposition parties. However, the record shows that the women's representation can be enhanced independently. The bill was passed in the year 2023. And the center also notified the act on 16th of this month when it was the bill main bill was coming up before Lok Sabha, and and that can be implemented without being contingent on delimitation exercise. If genuine commitment exists, the government can notify and operationalize the reservation framework basing on the enactment made in 2023, ensure implementation in 2029 general elections itself, and strengthen the women's participation across party structures. Then federalism, my friends, is not a technicality. It's a constitutional guarantee. India's federal structure, my friends, India's federal structure depends upon the constitutional provisions which are enlightened. And this federal structure is not an administrative convenience. It is a constitutional guarantee rooted in diversity, linguistic plurality, and regional aspirations. Any attempt to tilt this balance risks weakening of voice of states. And number 2, concentrating power in the union, undermining cooperative federalism, creating long-term political and regional imbalances. The southern and northeastern states, many of which have demonstrated strong governance indicators, must not structurally disadvantaged for their policy successes. Then, democratic vigilance, the role of the opposition and the people. It is significant that the opposition parties collectively recognized this implication and resisted the move and got the ruling party's bill defeated. Then this reflects the continuing vitality of parliamentary democracy. However, the larger responsibility lies with the people. India's constitutional democracy has survived because citizens have repeatedly risen to defend it from the emergency in India to more recent challenges. So, my friends, what would be the conclusion? Ambedkar warned that even the best constitution can fail if those entrusted with the power to implement it choose to subvert its spirit. Today, the challenge is not just legal or political, it is civilizational. Will India remain a federal democratic republic based on equality and shared power, or will it drift towards centralized communal majoritarianism? The answer depends on collective vigilance. The preservation of federalism is not about protecting states alone. It is about protecting democracy itself. So let us pledge to defend the federalism, to protect the constitutional values, to uphold the equality among states, and to resist any attempt to introduce authoritarian centralization, because when federalism weakens, democracy itself is in danger, and when democracy is in danger, silence is not an option for the people of India. Jai Constitution, Jai Bharat.